Hello and welcome. This is the Market Wrap. I'm Agam Vakil, where we've seen a lot of changes within the benchmarks, but the benchmarks themselves have, well, I would say there's been some amount of consolidation, but eventually closing with some gains as far as benchmarks are concerned. In fact, about a percentage point gain coming in for the Nifty 50. And while a lot of these gains earlier on the sessions were on the back of the information technology sector, eventually it was only Infosys which stood with gains of nearly 10%. And that was followed by BPCL, Cipla, M&M, and Britannia. Britannia, of course, announces earnings tomorrow. So we'll be watching out for that. On the losing end, Bharti Infratel looking at a knock of 7%. Tech Mahindra, which was advancing earlier on in the session, eventually closing the trade with 2.5% cut. It was the same for ITC. And there's no respite for Indian Oil Corp or Z Entertainment either. Let's take a look at the broader markets. The NSE 500 specifically very interestingly poised because we did have a lot of losers in today's day of trade when it comes to the broader markets. That said, in terms of the gainers too, there were quite a few out there which did advance and advanced with good gains coming in through. So we'll be watching out for some of these names. Let's take a look at how things are panning out for your NSE 500. So we do have nearly one gainer for one loser on the NSE 500. Bajaj Consumer Care locked in a 20% upper circuit. EID Parry India also up around 10%. We have Max Financial, IPCA Labs, along with something like a Bombay Burma advancing by 6%. So some big names out there. Of course, on the losing end, Hathway Cable, which was so strong yesterday, today declined by around 10%. And Vodafone Idea, which was down yesterday, is down further, and it has actually lost out the A mark as well. So it's dwindling. And Avenue Supermart's looking at a 6.5% cut. I don't remember the last time I saw a DMart declining by 6.5% on an intraday basis, but we're clearly seeing a little bit of a precipitation of that selling that we saw post its earnings coming through over the last weekend. Prestigious stays, GM Financial and Tata Communications as well. But let's discuss this market with our markets editor Niraj Shah for how he's reading into these cues. Niraj, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Agam. I think Agam has summed it up really well about the kind of activity that happened. Frankly, what also came to bite, not really the index per se, but maybe the mood was also how Europe just shrugged off the Chinese data that came out today when the Chinese GDP grew about 3.2% because the European markets have or are, as we speak, trading on the bit of a back foot. So the world markets aren't exactly hunky dory. Having said that, we had our own pulls and pressures. Look at that. I mean, Euro, FTSE, CAC, DAX, etc., all of them not exactly hunky-dory today. We had our own sets of pulls and pressures. Frankly, at the broader end of the spectrum, mid-cap pharma, mid-cap IT did exceptionally well. The market breadth, though, if you will, compare it to what happened over the last couple of days, not yesterday really, but the day before yesterday otherwise, on green days, we've had much stronger market breadth, I think. In today's session, it was okay. But as I said, mid-cap IT and mid-cap pharma were the key positives. And yeah, this is the list of stocks that Agam already spoke about as well. And then specific to that, I thought the likes of IPCA, Thyrocare, including Cipla out here, but Alembic Pharma, all of those, that entire clutch of mid-cap pharmaceutical stocks had a really superb day in trade today. Very strong momentum, trending day, ending the day on the high. Normally it augurs very well for traders in these stocks as well. So the going is very good for pharma. Frankly, viewers, do your own due diligence, but if you do not know how to invest into a pharma company, maybe a pharma fund, you of course have to stay for the long term, etc. But almost everybody that we speak to says that this is not the end of the road or the rally is not done as yet. So maybe some thoughts of exposure to this sector might be interesting. At least that's what the experts tell us. The other bit was the kind of, remember the trade that we saw in mid-cap IT, which actually did very well too. But weak trade today seen in Idea, weak trade today seen in Infratel, Bharti was Oham. Reliance exactly didn't set the stage on fire. So we were thinking that maybe telecom will come to the party. But I think all of these stocks, for one reason or the other, are now starting to see some pullbacks and some serious pullbacks. And I dare say, Agam, 20th, the AGR case, which is on Monday, if that doesn't turn out to be in favor of the incumbent telcos, which is Airtel and Airtel and Idea, then Vodafone Idea is staring at a bit of a hole, really.
Yes, absolutely. That's a very, very important cue to keep an eye on when it comes to some of these telcos, incumbent funds, especially. But
Agam,
thank you so much.
I'm just wondering what's happening in mid cap IT, because today we saw all of those two really move up in trade.
Oh yes, that's an interesting space to be because once you start seeing the likes of Wipro and Infosys outperform, we always had that impetus building in the likes of Mindtree. So the thing with Mindtree and the reason why it stands out as compared to the others is Mindtree already had begun moving up, whereas there were a lot of the other relatively smaller names which were yet to move up, and that's the reason why we're starting to see a lot of gain in the likes of Emphasis, for that matter, or something like an L&T Technologies. Again, we are going to be watching out for how some of these names come through. So we are still waiting for earnings from Hexaware or Coforge, earlier known as NIT Technologies. And of Tech Mahindra was, it was strong this morning, but it did give up the gains. Not exactly a mid-cap company, but we'll be watching out for some of these names like NIT Technologies or Coforge and Hexaware Technologies. Of course, Emphasis are already run. A lot of these names are not a part of the Indian Nifty IT index, but we should be keeping an eye on something like an Emphasis as well. But to take a look at very quickly the futures and options space, which is turning out to be a very interesting place to be in, because we're looking at contraction and premiums on expected lines, because what's really happening is that even though the Nifty hasn't really moved above the 10,800 mark, it's not really contracting either, and it's not really moving below or not settling below the 10,600 mark, which means consolidation is still in place at this point in time. The Nifty is very much moving within that range of 10,500 on the lower end and 11,000 on the higher end, and we'll be watching out for some of these cues, whether or not something drastically moves in terms of open interest, and that may give us an idea about how the Nifty may pan out. But again, a lot of this will depend on the kind of earnings. We will have Britannia, one of the first large FMCG players, come up with earnings tomorrow, and that could give us a much better idea of how the first quarter has been. The first quarter being under lockdown and a gradual improvement in production. So that's going to be a crucial one to watch out for. Well, but on that note, it's a wrap on the markets. There's lots more lined up. Stay tuned to BloombergQuint.